On February 10th, 2020, history was made.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
It's safe to say that I was happy with the result. Some might call that an overreaction, but personally, I still think it was an underreaction. Bong Joon-ho's masterful societal thriller Parasite became the first non-English speaking film in 92 years of the Academy history to win Best Picture. That was something to celebrate. I've watched that clip back many times now, and I revel at the unbridled joy I was overwhelmed with. And it got me thinking, why did I care so much? Why did I have the freak out of my career because a Korean film took home the Best Picture Oscar? I slowly realized that the reason was it was much bigger than the fact that the right film won, so I decided to do a video on it. In this video, I will attempt to answer 3 questions. Firstly, how and why did Parasite end up winning Best Picture at the Oscars? Secondly, why was it so satisfying? And third and final question, just what exactly does Parasite winning the Best Picture at the Oscars actually mean? Before we get started, if you guys like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. And if you like the content, please consider hitting subscribe because I make lots of content just like this related to TV and movies. So if you like the content, please help me out by hitting that subscribe button. All right, shall we begin? Okay, so first question. How and why did Parasite win Best Picture? Well, to answer this question, it's important for us to understand the journey that Parasite took to get to the Oscars. Parasite was first unveiled to the world at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival, where it was met with universal acclaim from both critics and audiences. It went on to win the festival's top prize, the Palme d'Or, beating out other films like Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Winning the Palme d'Or is no small feat, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the recipient of the Palme d'Or will go on to have further success at the Academy Awards. In fact, only one other time has a Palme d'Or winner matched the Best Picture winner at the Oscars. That was Harold Hecht's Marty back in 1955 and 1956 respectively. In fact, in the last 20 years, only 3 other Palme d'Or winners have even been nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Those were Roman Polanski's The Pianist, Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life, and Michael Haneke's Amour. One of the reasons it's a challenge for the Palme d'Or winner to take home the top prize at the Oscars is because it has to sustain momentum and relevancy for a very long period of time. In this case, it was 10 months from when it debuted in Cannes back in 2019 to February 2020 when the Oscars took place. 10 months is a very long time for a film to still feel fresh and relevant, especially when you've got newer films coming into the public sphere and making a splash. But remarkably, Parasite got stronger with time. It maintained momentum and word-of-mouth buzz for over 3 months until it was introduced to American and Canadian audiences at the Telluride and TIFF film festivals, where more people fell in love with the darkly comedic satire. At that point, it had gained must-see status. The team behind its promotion and publicity were labeling it as a cultural event. And at this point, Film Twitter was in agreement that this was definitely a serious contender in the Best Picture race. The fact that a non-English speaking film was being lauded by critics and audiences and was considered as a Best Picture contender got people very excited for this film. There was even more of a demand to see it at this point. And by November time, Parasite was largely considered as the frontrunner in the Oscar race. Other films that seemed like a potential threat, such as Todd Phillips' Joker, which won the Golden Lion at Venice, Taika Waititi's anti-hate satire Jojo Rabbit, which took home the Grosh People's Choice Award at TIFF, and Martin Scorsese's magnum opus, The Irishman, all began to show signs that they were out of the Best Picture race. But as we came into January, a clearer picture of the race began to emerge, and it looked like it was going to be a 3-way race between Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Sam Mendes' 1917. With the Academy's love for films about Hollywood, Tarantino's personal narrative shaping up as someone long overdue for a Best Picture nod, and supposedly this being his penultimate film, meaning they only had one more chance to honor him to give him this award, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood certainly seemed like it was a viable threat. But it was when 1917 won Best Picture and Best Director at the Golden Globes that the narrative started to change. Parasite began to show signs that it was losing steam. The world was getting introduced to Sam Mendes' stunning World War I epic. It was a box office smash, and audiences were blown away by its immersive one-take approach. And it was only 4 years prior that a similar film with a one-take approach, Alejandro G. Inarritu's Birdman, took home Best Picture at the Oscars. 1917 was in an amazing position of timing because it was very late into the race. It didn't get its cinematic release until December, early January, but it did mean that it was the freshest of the Best Picture nominees in the Academy's minds. And the precursor awards began to solidify 1917's status as the Best Picture winner at the Oscars. It won 4 of the big Guild Awards: the Motion Picture Sound Editors, the American Society of Cinematography, the Directors Guild Awards, and the Producers Guild Award. The Producers Guild Award being the most highly reliable indicator as to who is going to win Best Picture at the Oscars. And with its 7 wins at the BAFTAs, including Best Picture, just a week prior to the Oscars, it seemed all but certain that 2020 would be the year of 1917. And so did the majority of pundits on Gold Derby as well. But Parasite wasn't fully out of the race. It also won 4 of the major Guild Awards: the Writers Guild for Best Original Screenplay, the Art Directors Guild for Contemporary Design, the American Cinema Editors for the Drama category, and most importantly, the SAG Ensemble, which is the SAG equivalent to the Academy's Best Picture. Parasite's win at the SAGs made it the first non-English speaking film to take home the award, a historical achievement already, but it also vastly increased its chances of winning Best Picture at the Oscars. It was still very much the dark horse because the Producers Guild Award is a more reliable indicator than the SAG Ensemble Award. But what we need to remember is that the largest voting branch of the Academy is in fact actors. In fact, they amount to almost 22% of the entire voting body. And the SAG and the Academy membership share a lot of overlap. So Parasite's SAG Ensemble win evidenced a deep love for this film from the acting community, most of whom are Oscar voters as well, which gave Parasite some serious clout as a potential winner. However, there were still some obstacles facing Parasite's victory, the first of these obstacles being the preferential ballot. Unlike the other 23 Oscar categories, Best Picture isn't decided using a popular voting system. It's done using a preferential ballot, which makes it a far more open race for a film to win Best Picture. If it was a popular vote, then Parasite probably would have won this hands down, no contest. But because the Academy members have to list all 9 of the Best Picture nominees from 1 to 9, 1 being their favourite, 9 being their least favourite, it makes it a lot more interesting. But when we take a look at the Academy membership, it is still predominantly made up of older white men. Yes, the Academy has taken steps to diversify its membership, but given the option to choose between a World War I epic film, which is also a technical achievement, or a foreign language social satire, which do you think the older white men, which are the majority of the Academy, are going to vote for? History speaks for itself, and it's well known that the Academy loves a war film, and they tend to pick films which are less controversial and more safe, which makes 1917 an ideal choice. The second obstacle that I was facing was the International Feature Award. This was the first year of the newly renamed category, which was formerly known as Foreign Language Feature, and Parasite was considered a lock to win this category. It's plausible to think to certain Academy members, if Parasite wins International Feature, then it doesn't need to win Best Picture as well, because effectively you're giving the same film the same award twice. So the Academy members might be more diplomatic with their votes, so another film can be honoured. So as you can see, Parasite's journey from its debut in Cannes to its Oscar wins was a long, winding and obstacle-filled road, but it still managed to prevail. Parasite's wins for Best International Feature and Best Picture were unprecedented. No film in the history of the Academy Awards had ever taken both of those trophies home. Other foreign language films had come close before, most notably Alfonso Cuarón's Roma the prior year, which we'll discuss later. But what was it about Parasite that made it achieve what no other foreign language film could? I believe there are a variety of factors which help Parasite to overcome these obstacles. The first factor is Parasite's appealability. Very rarely does any film manage to simultaneously appeal to critics, audiences, and Oscar voters. A couple examples of films that managed to do so would be Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, and more recently Jordan Peele's Get Out. It's even rarer for a foreign language film to do this. The last time it happened was probably for Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. But with Parasite, everybody seems to love this film, or at the very least, they like it. It's actually quite challenging to find reviews that are negative for this film. So as a film, Parasite had the trifecta of support from critics, audiences, and Oscar voters. Also, for the general English-speaking, movie-going public, it's much easier for them to consume films that are made in their own language. Foreign language films are often stigmatized for being too challenging to maintain interest. They're often unfairly dismissed as boring or art house, and some viewers just don't like having to read subtitles when they watch a film. But as the very wise filmmaker Bong Joon-ho says,
자막, 서브타이틀의 장벽도 아니죠. 한 1인치 정도 되는 그 장벽을 뛰어넘으면 여러분들이 훨씬 더 많은 영화를 즐길 수 있습니다.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But with Parasite's gripping mix of palpable word-of-mouth hype, thank you very much to the hashtag BongHive, as well as the film's content of dark laughs, thrills, and genius twists and turns, it never gets boring. Even the casual moviegoer can enjoy this film, even if it's in Korean. But what also helped Parasite do so well internationally is the film's thematic content. Parasite may be a Korean film exploring the social and class divide between an affluent family and an impoverished family, but its core themes transcend past Korea to all cultures. It's a film which illustrates the importance of how we treat each other. Regardless of wealth or nationality, there will always be people better or worse off from ourselves. Parasite is very much the zeitgeist film of 2019 because it shows us who we are. It has a fundamental, universal appeal, and everybody can see themselves in it. Secondly, another factor to Parasite's Best Picture success is its fortuitous position of timing. And I should clarify when I say timing because I don't mean what time of the year when this movie was released. I mean more in a sense of societal and historical timing. In 91 years of Academy history, no non-English speaking film had ever won Best Picture. In a society where inclusivity, representation, and diversity are at the forefront of the movie industry debate, having an establishment like the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences never having a foreign language film win Best Picture is shameful. They need to practice what they preach, and it was time for change. Which brings me into the third factor, the Academy's image and the political climate. The Academy has been under plenty of scrutiny over the past 10 years. Never does a year go by without there being some sort of scandal. A topic that often arises is diversity, most notably when the 2015 and 2016 acting nominees all consisted of Caucasian nominees, which started the whole hashtag Oscars So White movement. Because at the time the Academy mostly consisted of older white men, many people blamed the Academy's membership for the lack of diversity, so the Academy took action by diversifying its membership in order to reflect a more diverse set of nominees. As of 2020, the Academy membership has improved with 32% now women and 16% now people of colour. They've still got a long way to go, but at the 91st Academy Awards, a record-breaking 3 out of 4 of the acting winners were non-white actors. However, when the 92nd Academy Award nominations were announced, the hashtag Oscars So White started to trend again because only one person of colour had been nominated in all the acting categories. That was Cynthia Erivo for Best Actress for her performance in Harriet. The Academy was once again under fire for multiple reasons. 2019 was a prominent year for female filmmaking, and yet not a single woman got a nomination for Best Director. There'd also been numerous performances from people of all ethnicities that didn't receive a nomination, predominantly the Asian community. Lulu Wang's critical indie hit, The Farewell, didn't receive a single nomination when Awkwafina and Zhao Zhuzhen were very deserving, and Parasite, while still securing 6 nominations, didn't receive a single nomination for acting. Parasite continued the Academy's unspoken tradition of having a film with a predominantly Asian cast to secure 5 or more nominations, but none for acting. Others include Last Emperor, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Memoirs of a Geisha, Slumdog Millionaire, and Life of Pi. Other notable diverse acting exclusions this year included Jennifer Lopez for Hustlers, Jamie Foxx for Just Mercy, and Lupita Nyong'o for Us, all of whom were nominated by other awards bodies. Having once again such a homogenous group of acting nominees, particularly in a year of such exceptional visible representation, made the Academy look like they had taken a step back. And while the previous years saw a record number of non-white acting winners, as well as more women and black individual winners than ever, the headlines the next day still leaned their focus more towards the controversial Best Picture winner, Green Book. This brings me to the next factor, the Academy's redemption. I strongly believe that the backlash to Peter Farrelly's Green Book winning Best Picture at the 91st Academy Awards was a large factor as to why Parasite won the following year. Spike Lee infamously tried to walk out of the theatre when Green Book was named Best Picture, even though he had just won an Academy Award himself like an hour ago. In a year where progressive films such as Black Panther, Black Klansman, Roma, and The Favourite were all up for the top prize, the Academy chose to go with a safe, feel-good white savior film which was directed by a white man. Instead of making history, they decided to repeat it by picking a film which is essentially this decade's Driving Miss Daisy. But it wasn't just Spike Lee that was disappointed with the result. The internet wasn't happy about it either. Most people just saw it as the Academy thinking they had chosen something topical and given themselves a pat on the back in the process, when really it's an outdated pick. Yes, racism was bad in the 60s. We knew that already. There were so many more films that year that had so much more to say. BlacKkKlansman was set in the 70s, but felt very timely with the very media-covered rise of the neo-Nazi movement in America at the time. We could have had a female-driven and LGBTQ-themed film like The Favorite Twin, or the first superhero film with a predominantly black cast, Black Panther, but what stung most of all was that this could have actually been the year that the first non-English speaking film broke the glass ceiling of winning Best Picture. We could have had Alfonso Cuarón's Roma to win. Alfonso Cuarón's Roma was an award season favourite. It was a deeply personal film from Cuarón, and it was a critical success. It did manage to take home 3 Oscars, Best Foreign Language Feature, Best Cinematography, and Best Director, but it still couldn't snatch the top prize. But I strongly believe what kept Roma from taking home the Best Picture was the fact that it was a Netflix film, and the fact that it was also too pretentious for some Oscar voters. The rise of streaming services has been a hot topic when it comes to the distribution of films, and many filmmakers have been outspoken about their dislike for films made for streaming services like Netflix. And while Roma was critically adored, general audiences were more divided. Because it was a Netflix film, and also it was quite slow and art-housey, Roma didn't have the full support of the entire Oscar voting body. Instead of the Academy choosing something significant, we got a racial tension road trip movie that we'd already seen before. The disdain to Green Book's win was so vehemently felt, and when the 2020 nominees were announced and it was once again a white party in the acting nominations, this just added more fuel to the fire, and the Academy had a very visible image problem. Green Book's Best Picture win left a residual bad taste in the public's mouth. And when the 2020 Oscar nominations were announced and there was only one person of colour in the acting categories, no Asian representation, and also no female directors nominated in the directing category, it painted the Academy in a very negative light. Fortunately, they were smart enough to recognise Parasite for its brilliance in 6 other categories, including Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. With all the justified backlash and negativity aimed at the Academy, many voters would have seen Parasite as their way to make amends. To give Parasite not only Best International Feature, but Best Picture as well, would definitely be seen as a course correction. It would give the Academy some much needed positive press, and it would also make history. This was the Academy's redemption. Parasite's win for Best Picture was their way for the Academy to assuage their guilt for their lack of diversity and previous controversies. Nothing says look at how progressive we are than having a Korean film take the top prize. But we also have to remember that Parasite won Best Picture because of its own merits as well. It's a well-crafted, thoroughly entertaining, and thought-provoking film which transcended language barriers because of its universality. It had the rare trifecta of appealability. Critics, audiences, and Oscar voters all loved it. It genuinely is beloved, this film, and it was easily one of the best made and received films of 2019, meaning it was worthy of Best Picture, and not just some win for the sake of diversity. It also wasn't a film that was made for a streaming service like Netflix, so there was no bad blood against it like Roma. Roma had more working against it than Parasite did. It was a Netflix film, but it was also a slow, black and white art house film that not everybody loved. Parasite didn't have either of those problems. But the upset that Roma didn't win the previous year would have helped Parasite to cross that finish line. Parasite was in a more fortunate position of timing. The political climate and the negative image surrounding the Academy Awards would have given it a boost because of what its win would say to the world. But it was also time for a non-English speaking film to win. It's mind-boggling to think it took 92 years for this to happen. So we've looked at how and why Parasite won Best Picture, but we also need to answer, why was its win so satisfying? The reason why Parasite's victory was so overwhelmingly satisfying for myself and so many others are numerous. Firstly, it was a total underdog win. For a long time over award season, it was a 3-way race between Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917, and Parasite. Given the Academy's track record for Best Picture winners, including last year's Best Picture winner Green Book, it seemed more likely the Academy would go with what they know than embrace the future. Two things that the Academy loves are films about Hollywood and films about war. So Parasite was at an immediate disadvantage, but as we discussed before, no non-English speaking film had ever won Best Picture before, so this was unprecedented. Parasite was the little movie that could. Comparatively to its two closest competitors, 1917 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which were being distributed by heavy hitters like Universal Pictures and Sony Pictures Releasing, as well as having big production budgets and publicity budgets, whereas Parasite was a small budget movie backed by an indie distributor, Neon. So Parasite's win was very much a David and Goliath victory. It was almost a fairy tale ending. Second reason it was so satisfying is because Parasite wasn't the favourite to win Best Picture on Oscars night. 1917 had the momentum. It had won at the BAFTAs, the Golden Globes, the Directors Guild Award, and the Producers Guild Award. And the Producers Guild Award is the most reliable precursor as to who's going to win Best Picture at the Oscars. And the fact that this little Korean movie could come in at the last moment and snatch the top prize from a huge budgeted blockbuster just made it all the more juicier. And thirdly, it was a historical win. It's always exciting to be there for an unprecedented victory. For cinemaniacs like myself, it was a long overdue moment to see a non-English speaking film win Best Picture, and for it to be as something as beloved as Parasite was just pure, unadulterated joy. It felt right, it was time, and I got to be a part of it by watching the moment it was crowned. It's a moment which I personally will treasure forever. This leads me into the final question. What does Parasite's Best Picture win mean? Short answer, it means a lot. And this question kind of overlaps with the previous question, because the reason Parasite was so overwhelmingly satisfying is because of what its win actually means to the world. Parasite's win symbolizes change, progress, inclusivity, and hope. It completely debunks the myth that a film needs to be in the English language in order to win Best Picture. It sends a message to all filmmakers, regardless of nationality, that the Academy, the highest respected body of industry alum, are embracing the future. The Best Picture can come from anywhere in the world. It says they're inclusive and evidences the progress they're making to make the celebration of cinema as global as possible. Parasite has opened that door for all international films. And it was a historical moment, the first of its kind, and we all know the importance of what it means to be first, and it was about damn time. Even the Academy members themselves knew what this meant. People like Tom Hanks and Charlize Theron were part of the cheering crowds telling the Academy to leave the lights on as Parasite collected the coveted top prize. This wasn't just Parasite's moment, this was history's moment. Let's bask in this moment a little while longer because change has arrived. Parasite was my favourite film of 2019, and to see it defy the odds and be named Best Picture was both a very personally satisfying moment for me, but also a landmark moment for cinematic culture. It's what inspired me to make this video because I wanted to look back in 30 years' time and remember where I was when history was made. Parasite's Best Picture win illustrates that cinema is worldwide, and as a medium, it's the universality of storytelling which brings us together, regardless of language barriers. I'm so happy we started off the new decade of 2020 with a Best Picture winner, which will have a ripple effect for so many future filmmakers of the world. Parasite's win is not just a much-deserved win for an amazing film, it's so much more than that. It's a trailblazing win for all international filmmakers. Its win actually means something, and it will have positive repercussions for the entire future of cinema. Historians will be able to look back and say it was Parasite's victory that set other events in motion. It is a game changer, and it's opened the door for so many others. And that's why Parasite means so much to me. But I want to hear from you guys. What does Parasite's Best Picture win mean to you? Whatever your opinions on Parasite and its Best Picture win, be sure to let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. Did you guys like this video? If yes, please hit that like button and share with your friends. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to support me, please don't forget to click that subscribe button for more film and TV content just like this. And if you guys want to follow me on any social media, Twitter, Instagram, you can find all the information in that video description down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Carefield, and I'll see you next time.